A young nurse saved a little girl from a pit bull attack at the park, unaware her dad owned half the state. He changed her life instantly. It was exactly 4 p.m. that Thursday evening in New York when Emily stepped out of St. Grace Memorial Hospital, unaware of what was lurking and waiting for her. An event that would change her life forever. Her shoulders were heavy with exhaustion, and her spirit worn thin from a grueling 12-hour shift. Emily had been a nurse for nearly 6 years, but this walk through the park was a moment of peace. A sacred ritual that allowed her to exhale the day, no matter how chaotic it had been. She had walked the same route home since she first moved into her little brownstone apartment in Brooklyn Heights. The park, with its leafy oaks and winding cobblestone paths, was more than a shortcut. It was her sanctuary. The sun had just begun its descent, casting a golden glow over the tree-lined park. She passed familiar sights. The old man who fed pigeons by the bench near the fountain, the jogger who always wore neon green, and the little girl with pigtails who played with her purple ball every other evening on the grass. It was a scene she could have painted with her eyes closed. Nothing ever changed here, and that was why she loved it. Until today. Out of the corner of her eye, something snapped. A movement too fast, too violent to be normal in this place of peace. Emily turned just in time to hear a panicked scream. It wasn't a playful shout or a child whining. It was raw fear. Then she saw it. A pit bull, muscular and wild-eyed, was charging across the open field, its leash trailing uselessly behind it like a broken promise. People were already reacting. Mothers grabbing their children, a teenager fumbling with his phone, someone shouting for help. But the dog had already locked its focus. The little girl with the purple ball was standing in the center of the grass, frozen in fear. She didn't run. She didn't scream. She couldn't. Her small frame was paralyzed. Wide eyes locked on the barreling beast that was no more than 20 yards away and closing fast. Emily didn't think. She didn't calculate distance or danger. Her nursing instincts kicked in. Not the ones from books or training, but the ones buried deep in her bones. She sprinted. "Move!" someone shouted behind her, but she couldn't hear them. Her heart thudded in her ears as her feet pounded the earth. The wind howled past her face as she crossed the grass in long, desperate strides. 10 yards. 5. The dog snarled, teeth bared, its growl rattling the air like thunder. Emily reached the girl and swept her into her arms, twisting her body in one fluid motion to place herself between the child and the oncoming force. Then, pain. It was white-hot and immediate. The dog latched onto her lower leg, its jaws sinking deep. Emily screamed but didn't let go of the child. She fell to her knees, still shielding the girl. Her back arched in agony as blood began to soak through her pants, trickling down into the grass. Someone tackled the dog. A man, maybe two, struggled to pull it off. One hit it with a bag. Another yanked hard on the leash. After what felt like an eternity, the grip loosened, and the dog was pulled back, barking wildly, foam at its mouth. Emily collapsed forward onto the grass, her arms still wrapped around the trembling little girl who was now crying into her chest. "It's okay," Emily whispered through clenched teeth. "You're okay. You're safe." Her leg throbbed violently, and the warmth of her own blood soaked into the earth beneath her. Still, she didn't move. She didn't release the child until another pair of arms gently pried the girl away. "Are you hurt?" a panicked voice asked. It was a man's voice, deep, worried, close. Emily blinked up into the face of a sharply dressed man. Expensive suit, expensive watch, but eyes filled with absolute terror. "My daughter," he choked, pulling the girl to his chest. "Oh my God." Emily tried to smile but winced. "She's okay," she whispered. By then, a crowd had gathered. Phones were out, cameras recording. Someone had already called 911, and sirens could be heard in the distance. But all Emily could think about was staying conscious. The man dropped to his knees beside her. "Don't move," he said urgently, placing his jacket under her head like a pillow. "Help is coming. Please just hold on." "I'm okay," Emily murmured, trying to sound brave. The truth was the pain was searing, and her vision had started to blur. "Don't try to talk. You saved her. You saved my little girl." The man's voice cracked. "I don't even know your name." "Emily," she whispered. "Emily." He repeated it like a prayer. The paramedics arrived minutes later in a flurry of motion. Emily was placed on a stretcher, an oxygen mask fitted to her face, and her wound temporarily bandaged. The man insisted on riding in the ambulance with her. Emily, drifting in and out of consciousness, could still hear his voice, calm, soothing, somehow familiar. He held her hand all the way to the hospital. Inside the ER, chaos erupted again, but this time it was controlled chaos, the kind Emily was used to. Nurses cut away her blood-soaked pants. The attending physician ordered x-rays and pain meds. She was conscious enough to identify herself as one of their own, a nurse, part of the family. They worked quickly and efficiently through it all. The man stayed by her side. It wasn't until she was stabilized and resting in a private recovery room that he finally introduced himself. "My name is Charles Donovan," he said quietly. "You probably don't recognize me. I prefer it that way." Emily blinked up at him from the hospital bed. He had changed into something more casual, but his presence still carried an air of importance. "I just wanted to thank you. My daughter, Lily, she means everything to me. If you hadn't been there, if you hadn't done what you did—" He paused, jaw tightening. "I don't know how to repay something like that." Emily offered a weak smile. "You don't have to repay me. I did what anyone would have done." "No," he said, shaking his head. "That's where you're wrong. Not everyone would have run toward danger. You didn't hesitate. You put yourself between my child and death." There was a long silence. Then Charles reached into his jacket and pulled out a checkbook. He signed it quickly, tore out a check, and gently placed it in her hand. Emily looked down and blinked hard. $20 million. Her breath caught in her throat. "I know money can't equal what you did," he said, his voice softer now. "But please let this be my token of appreciation. Use it however you want. Live, heal, thrive. Whatever this world denied you before, don't let it anymore." Tears welled up in Emily's eyes, not from the pain, not from shock, but from the overwhelming flood of emotion that no one could prepare for. She didn't know then, but cameras had caught the entire incident in the park. News outlets had already begun picking up the story. Social media was ablaze. By the time the sun had fully set over New York, Emily was no longer just a tired nurse walking home. She was a hero, a woman whose one act of bravery, made in a heartbeat, would ripple far beyond a single Thursday evening. And though her leg bore the scars of that moment, her life had been forever changed. Not by the money, not by the fame, but by the truth that even in a world full of fear, someone still chose to run toward it for someone else. Despite her newfound wealth and recognition, Emily remained grounded in the very values that had defined her life before the headlines: humility, empathy, and dedication. Her days were now a blend of new responsibilities and familiar routines. While the foundation required much of her time, meeting with board members, planning programs, and attending events, she insisted on continuing her nursing work part-time. The hospital was more than a workplace. It was a community, a place where she had honed her skills and learned what it truly meant to care. Her colleagues admired her for this. Despite the public attention and financial windfall, Emily never let it change how she interacted with others. She was the same person who greeted fellow nurses with warmth, stayed late to comfort frightened patients, and rolled up her sleeves without hesitation. This authenticity only deepened the respect she commanded beyond the hospital walls. Emily embraced her new role as an advocate and mentor. She traveled to schools and community centers, speaking to young people about courage and kindness. Her story, the moment she leapt into danger without hesitation, became a beacon of inspiration. She emphasized that heroism was not reserved for the extraordinary, but found in everyday choices to act with bravery and heart. In one memorable visit to a local high school, Emily addressed a packed auditorium of students. "Courage isn't about never feeling fear," she told them. "It's about choosing to do what's right even when you are afraid. Kindness is not weakness, it's strength. And sometimes all it takes is one small act to make a world of difference." The students listened intently, many moved to tears and eager to ask questions. Their faces lit up with the possibility that they too could be heroes in their own lives. Charles Donovan and his daughter remained close to Emily, their bond forged in the crucible of that fateful day in the park. They were frequent guests at foundation events, their presence a symbol of friendship and shared purpose. Charles, who had once been a distant figure in the headlines, revealed a deeply compassionate side as he worked alongside Emily to expand the foundation's reach. Together, they launched initiatives to provide mental health counseling for first responders struggling with trauma, created scholarship programs for nursing students from underprivileged backgrounds, and funded the purchase of vital equipment for hospitals in need. The foundation's impact grew quickly, touching lives across the state and inspiring other philanthropists to join the cause. Despite the whirlwind of activity, Emily took care to maintain balance in her life. She often returned to the park where it all began, finding solace in its quiet paths and familiar trees. It was here, in moments of reflection, that she grounded herself, reminding herself of the simple humanity that had guided her through everything. Emily's humility shone brightest when she spoke candidly about her journey in interviews and speeches. She rejected the label of hero, instead focusing on the shared humanity that connected her with the people she helped, and who helped her in return. "I'm just a nurse who did what anyone would do," she often said. "But if my story can encourage even one person to act with kindness or courage, then it's worth everything." Her story resonated far beyond her hometown. Across social media, people shared her message of hope and resilience. Nurses and first responders reached out to thank her for giving voice to their struggles. Young people found in her an example of how ordinary lives could be transformed through extraordinary compassion. Over time, the Emily Carter Foundation became more than an organization. It became a movement. Its programs expanded nationally, inspiring similar efforts across the country. Emily's leadership remained steady and humble, always centered on the people behind the scenes who faced danger and hardship daily. Through it all, Emily never forgot where she came from. The girl who once walked home tired after a long hospital shift was now a symbol of hope and a catalyst for change. Her life forever altered by a single moment of bravery that had come full circle. In the quiet moments between speeches, events, and hospital rounds, Emily found peace in knowing she had created something enduring. The foundation was her legacy, a testament to the power of courage and kindness in the face of fear. And as she looked ahead to the future, she felt ready to face whatever challenges came next, armed not with fame or fortune but with a heart dedicated to serving others. Her new beginning was not just a chapter in her own story, but an open invitation to everyone to act with courage, lead with kindness, and believe that each of us holds the power to change the world one selfless act at a time. It was a gentle spring afternoon, exactly 1 year since that day that had altered Emily's life forever. The park, alive with the cheerful sounds of children laughing and playing, was bathed in a warm golden light that spilled through the trees, dappling the soft grass beneath. Families picnicked on blankets, friends tossed frisbees, and the air was filled with a sense of calm happiness that only a sunny day could bring. For most, it was just another peaceful afternoon. But for Emily, this place held a special, almost sacred significance. She sat quietly on a worn wooden bench near the edge of the playground, watching the world around her with a calm heart and thoughtful eyes. The noise and energy of the children, their freedom and joy, stirred something deep inside her. This was the same grass where, a year ago, a sudden burst of chaos had shattered the stillness. The memory of that day, both terrifying and miraculous, came rushing back with vivid clarity. The pit bull that had charged toward a small, defenseless girl, the instinctive, unhesitating decision to throw herself between the dog and the child, shielding the girl with her own body. The sharp pain as the dog's teeth sank into her leg, the terror and relief that followed. Now the little girl was there too, running free and laughing, unburdened by fear. Emily's gaze softened as she watched the girl dart through the sunlit grass, her carefree spirit a living testament to survival and healing. The transformation of that child, from trembling vulnerability to joyous childhood, felt like a quiet victory that belonged to everyone who had cared, comforted, and loved her. As Emily sat lost in thought, a familiar figure approached carrying 2 cups of steaming coffee. It was Charles Donovan, the man whose generous gift had not only changed her life but given her the means to create a lasting legacy. He smiled warmly and settled beside her, offering one of the cups. The two sat in companionable silence, sipping their coffee and absorbing the peaceful surroundings. "It feels different here now," Charles said thoughtfully, his eyes following the children playing nearby. "Almost like this place is healed with time, just like all of us." Emily nodded. "A year ago this park was where everything changed. I used to walk through here without thinking much. Now every step, every sound reminds me of what happened and what could have been." They both looked toward the little girl again, who was now running toward a cluster of other children. Her laughter rang out clear and bright, a melody that seemed to cleanse the lingering shadows of that terrible day. "It's incredible how one moment can ripple through so many lives," Charles said quietly. "Your courage that day saved her." "Yes," Emily replied, "but it also set off something much bigger, a chain of hope, kindness, and community." Emily smiled, a mix of humility and gratitude filling her. "I never imagined that my simple act of doing what felt right would lead to all this, the foundation, the support for nurses and first responders. It's humbling to see how people have rallied." Charles reached out and gently touched her arm. "You gave people a reason to believe again in a world so often filled with fear and division. Your story reminded everyone that bravery and compassion still exist. That's a gift no money can buy." Emily looked down at her leg, the faint scar visible beneath the hem of her pants. It was a quiet but constant reminder of the pain she had endured and the life she had saved. The scar had become a symbol not just of suffering, but of strength and survival. A mark of a moment when fear was overcome by selfless love. For a long moment, neither spoke. Around them, life continued its joyful rhythms. Children played tag, parents chatted on benches, and the breeze whispered through the trees carrying the fresh scent of spring blossoms. Finally, Emily broke the silence. "Sometimes I still can't believe how much has changed in just a year. I went from an ordinary nurse going through my daily routines to someone whose story touched thousands, maybe millions. It's overwhelming, but also somehow right. Charles smiled. You didn't ask for this. You just acted with your heart. And the world needed that. We all do. Their conversation drifted to the foundation Emily had started with Charles as support, a beacon of hope for nurses and first responders who often went unnoticed. She shared stories of the scholarships awarded, counseling programs launched, and the growing network of people inspired to join their cause. Despite her success and the fortune she now had, Emily remained committed to working part-time at the hospital, holding on to the very core of who she was. You stayed humble through all of this, Charles said admiringly. That's rare. It's why people trust you, why they believe in your vision. Emily shrugged, a soft laugh escaping her lips. I just remember where I came from, the hospital halls, the late-night shifts, the quiet moments when all you have is a patient's hand to hold. That's what grounds me. As the afternoon deepened into early evening, Emily found herself reflecting on the ripple effect of that one act. How a single moment of courage had expanded far beyond the initial rescue, creating waves of kindness and support that spread through the community and beyond. It was a reminder that even the smallest act, when done with love, could transform lives. She thought of the people she had met along the way. The nurses who confided in her, the first responders who thanked her for recognizing their sacrifices, the children whose futures had been brightened by the Foundation's work. Every story was a thread in the tapestry woven from that moment of bravery. Emily glanced once more at the little girl playing nearby. A year ago, that child had been frozen in fear, helpless and alone. Today she was free, laughing, thriving. That transformation was a true heart of Emily's journey, a testament to resilience and hope. As the sun began to set, painting the sky in shades of pink and orange, Emily felt a deep sense of peace. The scar on her leg tingled faintly, a reminder of the past but no longer a burden. Instead, it was a symbol of how far she had come. Charles stood and offered his hand. Shall we take a walk? There's so much more to do, and the future looks bright. Emily took his hand with a smile. Yes, one step at a time. Together, they walked slowly through the park, their footsteps blending with the sounds of life around them.